Hi, I am so sorry. For some reason, I had some technical difficulties there. Yeah, you can see I'm hurriedly getting ready to do this show. No, I had everything set up on my computer. Any of you who do YouTube Live, you type all your information in, you have it set up, you hit the go live button. Nothing was happening except this circle that kept spinning and spinning and spinning. So anyway, here I am finally. So I apologize to any of you who got a 5 o'clock notice and saw blank space here. But it's good to be here again for another episode of Chuck's Captivating Chat, October 21st, 2024 edition. Hopefully my good friends will start joining me on here soon because this is what makes the show fun for me. Um, I've been doing this, I think, close to a year now, which is hard to believe. But I've said before, I take doing this a lot less seriously now. By that, I mean I don't do a lot of preparation, a lot of planning. I just come on here at 5 o'clock and I have the intention I'm going to have some fun. And it's going to be just a nice sit down chat with everyone. See if anybody is on here yet. Nobody's joined, but hopefully people will come in because I was so late. Technology. I'm still getting the hang of all of this. I'm still learning about, after a year later, still learning how to work all this stuff, YouTube and so forth. It'll be all right. So anyway, it is finally becoming fall here in Los Angeles. I'm very happy about that. After a miserable, sweltering heat wave, you might still hear my fan blowing in the background. And I also have my air conditioner running. It has cooled off, but it hasn't cooled off enough to my satisfaction. I'm really, really looking forward to authentic fall weather. So I was going to wait. Some people joined on here, but I guess I'll just start talking. I mentioned that I have been trying to donate a portrait I did of Kamala Harris. I have it here. I've shown it before. I'll show it again. And I thought, well, surely if I make this available for like a fundraising event or something, somebody will be interested in it. Made a lot of phone calls, sent out a lot of emails, a lot of texts. I did sometimes 4, 5, and 6 repeated messages to people, and nobody would get back to me. And I was told, of course, that people are just being slammed right now, especially with 2 weeks before the election. So it's difficult to return messages. Someone did finally get back to me today, and they said, well, there was an event where some artwork was being auctioned off to benefit the campaign, but there's probably not time to get my work in now. Never mind, I've been trying for a month to get it in. So that's my story. So I'm just making the best of the situation. I've been collaborating with my dear friend Pam of Pomona Remembers. I shot a video of myself through all of the stages of creating this piece of artwork, and amounted to almost 100 individual segments, lasting some things like 30 seconds here, a minute here, 2 minutes there. And then I just stitched it all together on iMovie and I sent it to her. She's a gifted maker of videos, wonderful artist, and intuitive, great psychic, good friend of mine, and she's going to do her magic on this. We're going to incorporate my narration of how I created the art, and we're going to also have Kamala's own voice, segments from her speeches in there, and we're going to put it on YouTube. It'll be a way to do our part to benefit the campaign. We just, and I've been doing volunteer work also. I've mentioned on the show that I did a lot of handwritten postcards, volunteer work for the Democratic Party. I went to the headquarters in Pasadena and I asked them, well, how can I be of service? Uh, phone calls are still the biggest thing any of us can do, but they said that handwritten postcards do get results. They get noticed. Maybe it's because people so seldom receive anything handwritten anymore. People seldom get letters or cards or anything handwritten now. So it stands out. It stands out that somebody took the personal time to write this message on there. And so I've been sending out postcards following the scripts they give me and the addresses to different states where there are important elections. Like I sent a whole bunch to Florida. It had a little barcode sticker on there to help people to register to vote. Sent more cards to Nevada, where the Senate race is extremely close right now. And as I talk about this, there's almost like a little sensor inside of me chiding myself, because I've always vowed to steer clear of politics on my own shows and my own videos. But if you watch me on Taco Tuesdays, the show I do with the wonderful Dr. Whimsy Anderson on her channel, The Oracle of Whimsy, Tuesdays, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, you know that we get very political on there, and it is no secret who I support. I've talked about it openly, so I talk about it here, but I also preface it with, I respect other opinions. It's whomever you feel in your heart and soul you need to support. That is your prerogative, but that's what I've been doing for myself. And it's a nail biter 2 weeks to go. But anyway, that's one of the things that's going on for me. It's been a mixed blessing, because I honestly thought it was not going to be this difficult to make a donation to help the campaign, with my artwork, my talent, my skills. I wanted to really give up myself, but I've done that, at least with the postcards, and I'm looking forward to this video. Pam and I have been in communication today, and as I speak, she's working on it right now. So Pam, if you see this, thank you very much for everything you're doing. And I appreciate her putting up with all my technical imperfections, because as I was shooting the making of this, there were some moments, I don't know what I did wrong. I guess I hit a wrong button somewhere on my iPhone where I hit slow motion or something, and the image was flickering and moving at an arthritic snail's pace. But hey, Kathy, thank you for joining. So hopefully Pam can do her wizardry and magic and fix all these mistakes and make it look like something. I know she will. I, of course, have the ring light, one right up here right now, the clamp where you can put your phone in it, but I've never been able to get it right, where on my drawing table with my paintbrushes and my pens and pencils and all, where I've got it angled just right where I can capture that. I've never succeeded. So I have to hold the phone over me while I'm drawing and painting. And that is hard. That's very hard, because you just saw the way I work. You've seen my art. It takes a lot of intense focus, a lot of concentration. Frankly, I channel as I work. I'm very intuitive. I'm very much in that flow. And especially when I do portraits, I feel like I'm connecting with the soul of the person. So that in itself, it's a whole thing right there. And then to have to hold a phone up above me while I'm doing it, sometimes I'll get so involved with the work, I don't even realize my hand is steered away and I'm not even photographing what I've just done, that type of thing. But I think I got something together. I think we have something that's usable, because I've had a lot of people ask me, why don't you make more videos showing how you create your art? And I've always resisted that. It's such a private thing for me. And also, any of you who are artists out there know that usually in the beginning, a piece of art is not going to look good. It's going to look like a mess. It's like when Michelangelo was chiseling and carving David. I'm sure there were rocks of marble, and there was dust flying everywhere, and the floor was a mess. And it's like, frankly, it's when I try to bake something in the kitchen, like when I make a carrot cake about once a year. It's my mother's recipe. My kitchen looks like a nuclear bomb went off. And as hard as I try, I can't help it. Flour everywhere, sugar, pans everywhere. It's just, I've never been able to cook without making a mess. Well, that's the way I am when I make my art, because I am so intuitive. I'm like the cook in the kitchen, reaching for the spice or that spice or a pinch of this, pinch of that. I'm that way with my brushes, reaching for colors of paint, and it's just stuff flies everywhere. So that's not a side I like showing very much. And also a piece of art. And when you see this Kamala Harris video, once we do get it finished and posted, you're going to see what I'm talking about. In the beginning, it looks like crap because I'm just laying down my base colors and putting, like the background, and just loosely sketching it all out. So it doesn't look like anything in the beginning. And I've had people look at that and go, well, that's not very good. I can't get people to understand that I'm going to be putting many, many, many layers on top of layers on top of layers, and it's going to go through all these stages and transitions. So that's one thing I'm happy about with the video, is that if you stick around, or even if you just fast forward through the darn thing, you're going to see how it comes together. You're going to see my process. And I'm feeling like it's more and more important for artists like myself to do these videos because of the proliferation of AI. I have a lot of artist friends on Facebook that I keep in touch with, really talented professional artists. And I'm hearing stories all the time where they get messages from people, well, what computer software did you use to create this? And their answer is, me. I painted it. I drew it. It came out of me. This isn't computer. But people almost assume that now, or at least they're starting to assume that. So I thought it would be really great to have a series of videos where you see, oh, this is a flesh and blood human being. This is a soul making this art. So I hope, if nothing else, that comes out of this. And with 2 weeks ago, I'm hoping the video will also assist the campaign, and I hope this isn't offending any viewers out there, because, one of the reasons I do avoid politics is I don't want to alienate half my audience. I'm still finding out who my audience is, frankly. This is still a work in progress, but the potential is there. It's what Dolly Parton herself said. She was giving an interview, and she said, well, of course I have political opinions, but I'm not going to share them with you. Why should I offend half of my audience? And she's absolutely right. And of course, that's not to say it is not a brilliant thing, a very brave thing, when people like Taylor Swift, for example, they do come out and make an endorsement. But I guess someone like Taylor Swift, she's not worried about losing a few members of her audience, as big as it is. Or maybe she might have even checked her own demographics first, just to see, well, how many of my fans actually could be Trump supporters? I have a feeling it's probably small, but I don't know that. And that's just speculation on my part. But, so please don't take me as an authority there. But, I applaud it either way. I respect people's personal choices, what they feel is right for themselves. And yeah, even on this show, I've gone out on a limb by admitting what I've been doing for the Democratic Party and for Kamala, but I do believe in her. For myself, as a resident of California, I've been aware of her for quite a while, probably before many in the nation were. And I remember back in 2016 when she was running for the state Senate, and she was running against, I believe it was Loretta Sanchez. And the Senate debate was covered on local television here in Los Angeles. I wasn't even familiar with Kamala that much, and I was like, oh my God. I was sitting on the edge of my seat. I just found her electric. And I knew in my heart of hearts, this was someone who was going to be a major star in the political scene, the national scene in the Democratic Party. Now, I never dreamt it was going to be such a meteoric rise to the vice presidency, and then now the Democratic nominee for president. And where it's going to go beyond here, we shall know in a couple of weeks. But that's where it all started for me. And I also have a friend in San Francisco who was just down here this weekend, my friend Barry, who knows her personally. And he was telling me that they went back a number of years and they became very close when her mother was dying and his mother was dying. So they actually cried on each other's shoulders there and consoled each other, got each other through that. But he speaks very, very highly of her as a person. So my friend Barry was down here for the weekend, and he was here and brought along his good friend Kathy Garver. And I'll talk more about her later. Kathy played Sissy on the iconic 1960s sitcom Family Affair. Remember Buffy, Jody, Mr. French, Uncle Bill, Sissy. But anyway, he and Sissy, he and Kathy were here for the dedication of the star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame for actress Juanita Moore, who is iconically known for the 1959 Lana Turner film Imitation of Life. And Juanita Moore broke ground for many African American actresses. And so at the star dedication ceremony, it was very heartfelt. Nancy Allen was there, Loretta Devine, Margaret Avery from The Color Purple, and also Juanita Moore's nephew spoke. I think he's her only, or at least he's her closest surviving relative. So he was the one who accepted the plaque for the star. And of course, it was the mayor of Hollywood declared it Juanita Moore Day in Hollywood. It was really beautiful. And Juanita Moore's nephew said, you know, I think Juanita lived, I could be wrong, I think she lived to be close to 100 or so. I've got to look that up. But he was telling us the last time he spoke to her. And this was, I think this went back to about 2013 or so, when efforts were first being launched to get her a star on the Walk of Fame. And he said, well, how do you feel about this? And he said, she said, well, honey, if people think I'm worthy of a star, then I'm all for it. He was saying, I just know she's watching this and she's twinkling and smiling right now. You know, and I think a lot of people outside of Hollywood don't realize just how complicated it is in many cases, not always, but in many cases, to get a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. There's a lot of politics involved. Money, it's expensive. I understand I forget what the figure is, but it's tens of thousands of dollars that has to be paid to get a star on the Walk of Fame. And also there's a special committee that each year only approves a number of people for new stars, I guess because there's just a finite amount of space left on the walkway, on the sidewalk on Hollywood Boulevard, to keep putting these stars up. You know, like, for example, I'm acquainted through Facebook with Chris York, whose father was Dick York, who played Darren, the first Darren, as far as I'm concerned, the only Darren on Bewitched. And he has been trying for many years to get a star on the Walk of Fame for his father. And every year he gets turned down by the committee every year. And there have been so many fans who have signed petitions. I signed the petition to get Dick York his well-deserved star. And it just hasn't happened yet. Who knows what the politics are? I was just conversing with another person on Facebook about the Kennedy Center honors and why Liza Minnelli keeps being turned down year after year after year for, for me, that should be a no-brainer. If there's anybody in the world who deserves to be honored by the Kennedy Center, it should be Liza Minnelli for her many years of work, her great body of work, her merit. So we were just talking about that a little, about the behind the scenes politics, and we wonder, is there money that has to be exchanged even there? A lot of stuff that we're not told about, publicly, because that's not very savory for these awards. These awards are supposed to be pure, and they're awarded purely out of merit. But who knows what else goes on? Because I've always thought it's suspicious. Why is she being overlooked every year? Kathy, what do they consider the qualifications are? Well, mostly it's the way it's supposed to be, is merit, your body of work, your achievements, your contributions to the entertainment world. My God, Liza Minnelli, she's won an Oscar, an Emmy, a Grammy, a Tony, movie star, stage, concerts, she more than meets the qualifications. Dick York, I mean, Bewitched, 60, this was the year of the 60th anniversary of Bewitched. That show, I dare say, is as popular as it ever was. It's like I Love Lucy. It just keeps finding new generations. Dick York made an immeasurable contribution to television history and pop culture. That's a beloved character. He should have his star. Yeah, I know, Kathy, it just doesn't make any sense. But anyway, only reason I bring that up is because it took 11 years to get Juanita Moore her star. And my friend Barry and his friend Kathy Garver, it's my understanding they were among the people of many people who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to cut through all the red tape and the politics and whatever was necessary, and raise, in some cases it involves fundraising, because it is tens of thousands of dollars. I know years ago, when Vivian Vance finally got a star on the Walk of Fame, I think back in those days, it was like $10,000 to get a star. And then you had to be approved by the committee and petitions and all that. And they got to that point. And I remember a number of fundraising events being held here in town to get Vivian Vance her star. And finally, I think they raised maybe half the money needed. And Lucille Arnaz generously gave the rest of the money so that Vivian had her star. And of course, Vivian and Lucy Arnaz were very, very close. In fact, it was Vivian Vance who encouraged Lucy Arnaz to pursue the stage. It was when Lucy Arnaz and her brother Desi Jr. were doing Here's Lucy with their mother, Lucille Ball, and Vivian Vance would guest star on the show about once a year. And she was talking with Lucy Arnaz. I think it was one of the last shows of the season. They were going to take their summer hiatus. And Vivian said, well, what are you doing with your summer? And Lucy Arnaz was saying, well, I think I may go surfing and some things like that. And Vivian said, you should be doing the stage. You should be doing summer stock. You should be pursuing your craft during these summer months. And Lucy Arnaz took her to heart. And Lucy Arnaz I believe she has said her first love is the stage. That's where she feels most home. And so, yeah, special allegiance to Vivian Vance and getting her star. So anyway, to cut to the point, that's what I did last Friday. I was at the star dedication ceremony for Juanita Moore. But all the more special, I I got to meet Kathy Garver, Barry, through Barry, and we went out to lunch together. And this was a big deal for me. I've lived in LA for 39 years, and I've told this before, but, as a kid, lonely little kid, very few friends, television was my friend. So I looked upon a lot of these television characters, like um, Andy Griffith, Don Knotts, Bewitched, the Beverly Hillbillies, the Lucy Show, all Family Affair. These people were like friends, So there was that little part of me, the little boy in me. So I'm sitting there having a nice adult conversation with Kathy Garver and all, and my little inner 6-year-old is going, "I'm with Sissy Davis from Family Affair, and I'm having lunch with her," and I know celebrity etiquette. When I used to work in the health industry in West Hollywood, I have met literally hundreds of celebrities in the last 39 years. Hundreds, not just work, at events, personal encounters, to where it's just a very normal thing for me. Like where I worked, we also, in the health store, we also had a juice bar. So there were times where every single day I'd see Anne Hathaway. Every single day I'd see Justin Bieber. I'd see Jeff Goldblum, not to give away their personal business or anything. But my point being, I gradually became desensitized to these stars, where they just became people. That was something I never thought would happen. But yeah, and you see the same stars day after day after day. But it's no big deal when you live in Los Angeles. You live in Los Angeles, it's just a fact of life here. You're going to meet a lot of celebrities. This is a city of thousands. I mean, literally thousands of celebrities. And you consider all the people who do soap operas, all the people who do sitcoms, hour-long dramas, all the movie people, and it's not just major stars, it's people who do bit stuff, supporting roles. You can go on and on and on and on. And also the music industry is here. The comedy, this is where a lot of stand-up comedians are based. So you're going to meet celebrities here. And that's why I can be nonchalant about it. And I'll talk with one of my friends who's in another part of the country, or people back in my hometown in Virginia, and they're like, "Oh my God, you met this person, and I'm like, yeah. It's honestly not that big of a deal anymore. But yet at the same time, I've never become jaded to it either. And I'm deeply, deeply appreciative. Hence, sitting and having lunch with Kathy Garver. And I'm always aware of what I call celebrity etiquette, where when you're with a celebrity, you just treat them like a regular person, and you don't gush over them. Or if you do gush, it damn well better be very sincere and very to the point. Otherwise they hear it all the time. They just don't need it. So I'm sitting there with Kathy and talking and all, and I said, something, Kathy, I'm so respectful of the fact that you hear this all the time. But I got to say it just once. I grew up with you, and I'm thrilled to be sitting with you right now. And she was so sweet about it. And one thing about Kathy, she's so accustomed to this. She owns it. She owns it. She accepts it. She embraces it. She's, some stars like Tina Louise, for example. No, you don't bring that up with her. You do not bring up, because I've met Tina Louise. Nice lady, but she just gave off that vibe. Don't you even think about bringing up either of the G words. And by the G words, I mean Gilligan and Ginger. So I didn't. But Kathy, well, actually, I'm going to say this also, because I met all three of the women from Gilligan's Island. Natalie Schaefer played Mrs. Howell. I met Tina Louise, and I finally met Dawn Wells. And Dawn Wells is another one who warmly embraced, her Gilligan's Island. She accepted that was the biggest thing in her career. That's what she was always going to be known for, Marianne. So she just made the best of it and loved it and loved talking to the fans about the show. In fact, when I met Dawn Wells, it was, it was between 1989 and 2014 that I met all three of the women. You know, like Natalie Schaefer, she died in 1990, so I was very lucky I met her that time. And I've told the story. Love that lady. She spent over 30 minutes with me talking about Gilligan's Island. And she still looked beautiful. She still looked like Mrs. Howell. And she talked like Mrs. Howell. And I love doing Gilligan's Island, like that. But she was sweet. She was down to earth. She was warm. So when I met Dawn Wells, it was at a book signing. I purposely went to the book signing for the express reason of I wanted to complete my set. I wanted to be able to say I had met all three of the women from Gilligan's Island. I figured I'd already done two. And so I told her that, and she laughed uproariously. She thought that was so cute and sweet and funny. And it was true. I said, I have completed my set. Check that off the bucket list. So anyway, that's the way Kathy Garver is about Family Affair. Just so gracious. She will talk about it. She'll answer any questions you have, and didn't act like, oh God, I got to talk about this again or something. No, nothing like that. She's very, very personable. And some things came up, like she was talking about Brian Keith, and I was saying to her, watching Family Affair. Well, first of all, the show was much better written and acted than I think I realized as a child. Watching it as an adult, I see how good the show was, and how Brian Keith was he just had this very solid quality about him, like kind of like the way Spencer Tracy had, just very solid and basic. And I said to Kathy, I think one of the reasons the show works so well, because it's about this uncle who took in his nephew and his two nieces after both their parents had been killed, and he was their only surviving relative. And I believe that was the premise of it, and he became their guardian and parent. And I said, Brian Keith as Uncle Bill, as a viewer, you could put yourself in the place of those kids. He just made you feel so safe and so secure, just very solid. But at the same time, he was very masculine, but very tender and loving at the same time. And Kathy said, yeah. And she said, did you know he was a Marine? And she said, I know just what you're talking about. He was a former Marine, a very tough, macho man. She said, very, very masculine, but yet he was so tender and vulnerable, and he was so loving. And he brought all that to the character of Uncle Bill. And I think that was the glue that held that show together, really. I mean, he was the star of the show, of course. But yeah, he was definitely the glue that held that together. And just little things came up. Like, I didn't know that, Anissa Jones, who played Buffy, of course, we know she tragically died of a drug overdose as a teenager. But Kathy was telling me that her hair was naturally much darker. They had to bleach her hair to make her blonde for the show. And I didn't know that. And I understand Susan Olsen, who played Cindy on the Brady Bunch, they also had to heavily bleach her hair. And to the point where I think both of those little girls had their hair falling out, and they had to wear like I heard Buffy's little pigtails. This wasn't from Kathy, but I read somewhere that her pigtails were actually fake because her own hair was so messed up from all the bleaching and everything. And they were talking about having to do that with Susan Olsen, and she was not happy about that. Little Cindy. So it was just, little things like that came up in conversation, but what a special thing. And then when we walked back um, to our cars, we had to walk down Hollywood Boulevard, and Kathy took my arm. I escorted her. And again, my little 6-year-old self was thinking, oh my gosh, this is the little 6-year-old me back in my little town in Virginia, watching that on a television set in my parents' living room. And I thought, my God, here I am. I've got Sissy Davis on my arm, and we're walking down Hollywood Boulevard, paved with all the stars. And I thought, now, is that not a manifestation of a childhood dream of coming to Hollywood? Yeah. Oh, yeah, Kathy, it was special, very special. Oh, just a very warm, sweet lady. I cannot speak more highly of Kathy Garver, and I was thrilled to meet her. Because I haven't, worked, in the health industry directly for 4 years, ever since the pandemic, when I lost my job, like a lot of us. And I've been more or less semi-retired since, pursuing my artwork, writing. I work as an assistant for Dr. Whimsy Anderson. I do these shows. I'm doing a lot of things that I love right now and have my hands in a lot of different ways of earning a living. And I do it from home. And that's kind of a double-edged sword right there, because, my zodiac sign is Cancer. So we're very home-oriented people. I love my home, but it's a small space. And the way I have the camera directed right now, you're seeing maybe one of the few clean areas in my apartment, or at least it's a semblance, it's an illusion of order. My home is I would not flip this camera out. It is such a mess right now. I need to take about a week and do some serious housework. I mean, like deep cleaning, polishing, dusting, organizing, throwing out. I've just got to bite the bullet and do it. But that is, I found one of the pitfalls of working from home. It's just too easy to get so involved in everything and just let my surrounding areas go to seed, go to hell. I don't know, but it's not quite that bad. But, we all know that a home is a metaphor. And when our surroundings, our habitat is organized and together, then we are organized and together. It reflects that. It's a mutual mirror. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'll let you know next week how well that is going along. But I had a really interesting Friday, and I guess what I was starting to say is, when I was in my work, I used to see celebrities, as I said, daily. It was a normal thing. Now it's more of an intermittent thing. So it was like a thing going back to the old days, and it was very much appreciated by me. Let's see here. What was I going to talk about else here? Because I always take a very loose form with this. But it was Pam who actually, because we've been in touch. Pam Pomona remembers working on that video we're doing for Kamala Harris with my artwork. And she was just, she just had some questions about Lucy, because she knows I'm the Lucy aficionado, the Lucy expert, or one of many. I don't want to be audacious there, but she was saying, Chuck, when Lucy was pregnant, because she was the second season of the show, she was pregnant in real life. That's a whole topic right there. I could do a hour-long show right there talking about that. So I better be careful not to go in that direction. But she wanted to know if Lucy, when she was pregnant, if she had trouble, like, Pam was saying this from her own experience being pregnant. Did Lucy bump into props? Did her stomach hit furniture, things like that? Were there problems during filming? And my response to that was, the likelihood is not because the show was so meticulously rehearsed. See, Lucy was a taskmaster. She was like a drill sergeant. She wanted every single bit of business, every minutia worked out perfectly. That she didn't want anything left to chance. So everything, obviously all the camera movement was very carefully choreographed. Everything was blocked where everybody was supposed to walk, move, be on your mark for your camera, your lighting and everything. Uh, Lucy rehearsed with her props. One famous story, it was the episode where she was on the phone with Ricky, and it was the one where she and Ethel had been abandoned and they had to wash dishes in the restaurant, and it was like 2 a.m. and they wanted to get revenge and stage something on the phone, make it look like they were being held up at gunpoint. And Lucy took a paper bag, pop, and made it sound like a gun firing on the phone for Ricky to hear. And Lucy, and this was documented, people on the set watched it, she spent 3 hours doing nothing but popping bags. Lucy kept popping bags so she found the perfect popping sound. That's how dedicated Lucy was. So I seriously doubt Lucy was bumping into furniture or anything. If she did that, it was in rehearsal, not on camera. Because one of the things about I Love Lucy was because she and Desi owned the show, Desi Lou Studios, they were extremely budget conscious. And anybody who knows about film production they know time is money, and you've got all of those people being paid, all those workers, it takes a lot of people to do a show. Technicians, cameramen, lighting people, stage hands, script clerks, makeup artists. You can go on and on and on and on. A lot of people being paid. So Lucy, one of the reasons she wanted that show so well rehearsed was that they could shoot it straight through and be done in the least amount of time. And they typically did an I Love Lucy episode in about 45 minutes, a half-hour episode. Well, actually, you want to get technical about a show was something in those days. It was about 26, 27 minutes. Now, a lot of these shows get cut down for syndication. They get cut down to about 23, 24 minutes or so. But that was the length. So almost a full half hour. And they'd shoot that in 45 minutes from start to finish. And the reason for the extra minutes was you had to actually load film into the cameras, because in those days a camera could only hold about 10 minutes worth of film. So there had to be stops to change the film. Also costume changes, things like that. Or it was an opportunity for the director to take people aside and give them some notes before they started filming again. But still, it was remarkable 45 minutes, because I have gone to a number of filmings and tapings of situation comedies. I can tell you that it's not unusual for one to go on for at least 3 hours or more. And I've heard stories of them going on 5, 6, and even 7 hours. Like someone I think was telling me once, I forget what show it was, but it went on so late, they had to have caterers come and bring food to the audience, because they had been sitting there for so long. So anyway, that was the first part of that. I answered that question for Pam, but then she asked me another interesting question. And this even ties in with what I was talking about earlier about costume changes and the such. Pam wanted to know, because she knows Lucy and Desi were definitely soulmates, the great loves of each other's lives, but they also had serious marriage troubles. It was the case of you can't live without a person, but you can't live with them either, because even after they divorced, they still remained very close. Desi Arnaz gave an interview in the 80s to Entertainment Tonight, and I never will forget this. Desi said, "Oh, Lucy and I are very close. We talk at least 2 and sometimes 3 times a week on the phone." I mean, after all those years. Um, and of course, there's this story of when Desi was dying and Lucille Arnaz held the phone to his ear, and it was Lucille Ball on the other end. I've told this before, but Desi was near death, and he was slipping in and out of consciousness. And he was awake, and Lucille Arnaz called her mother and said, "Mom, if there's anything you want to say to Dad, I think you better do it now. You better do it now." And she heard her mother get a little choked up and said, "Well, all right, all right." And Lucille Arnaz held the phone to Desi's ear. And Lucille Arnaz has told this story in interviews where she heard her mother's deep, distinctive voice, "I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you." She just kept saying it over and over and over. And then Desi, he was so weak, he could barely even hold up his head, hold his eyes open, but he heard it and he just said, "I love you too, sweetheart." And then, according to Lucille Arnaz, he closed his eyes and soon slipped into a coma and never woke again. And he died 2 days later. But according to Lucille Arnaz, those were his last words. And they were to Lucille Ball. And the last voice he really heard was Lucille Ball telling him that she loved him. Now, that's like something out of a movie script. So I just bring that up again to point out what soulmates they are. And hi, Ward, thanks for joining. Oh, don't worry about being late. The good thing about this, it's all recorded, so it's easy to catch up. I mean, this is so freeform. I don't even know if I can backtrack to talk about what I talked about. Oh, Ward, let's see, Ward. I talked about meeting Kathy Garver and having lunch with her on Friday. She's the one who played Sissy on Family Affair, and I was there with her and my friend Barry for Juanita Moore's dedication of a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And anyway, the people have been watching don't need to hear this again, but that's just to get you caught up. So anyway, my friend Pam was asking me, obviously they were in love, but they obviously had horrible trouble. So did that ever spill over into the show? And I said, that's a good, legitimate question there, because, well, first of all, Lucy and Desi were consummate professionals. And, I know this from my own stage work I've done. That's one of the first rules of the theater. Come 8 p.m. and that curtain opens or those lights come up, you darn well better leave your problems back in the dressing room. You don't take that out on the stage. That's part of being a professional. And so Lucy and Desi, Ward, Kathy is wonderful. I'll mention a little more later if I can. She's just a sweetheart. She's everything you would expect her to be. But anyway, that's where Lucy and Desi were coming from. They were consummate professionals. And it was to their credit that they didn't bring their troubles. And I would think most people would agree the large percentage of those shows, you don't see a hint of it. In fact, it was Lucille Ball herself who said in latter years that one of her favorite things about doing I Love Lucy, she said, for 30 minutes a week, I got to have a perfect marriage with Desi. It's kind of like children, when they have their fantasy worlds, their make-believe, where you suspend reality for a little bit. For the amount of time it took to do the show, they got to be just purely in love with each other. Lucy and Ricky Ricardo, soulmates, in love, taking such joy in each other, which was very honest. We're multidimensional in our souls. We have many facets. That was a very authentic facet of who they were. It's just the show gave them full reign and permission to be that. And they got to be that before the whole world. It's like they gave their best of themselves to the world. And sometimes it's been said, why couldn't they have given that to each other? I think they even speculated on that. But it was by the last 5 years of their marriage, it was very, very bad. I've read that Desi was not even living at home anymore. They were pretty much separated. He was usually staying at the Chateau Marmont Hotel or wherever. It was a terrible, terrible time for Lucy. Um, Friends who knew her said she was just constantly crying and devastated and doing everything she could, but it's like they both were conceding the marriage was over, but they were trying to stay together, I think, for their children. And they were, because they did know their love was so authentic, they were trying to find something out of all of this. But it was just so damaged at that point, but anyway, Lucy and Ricky Ricardo gave them that safety zone, gave them that wonderful fantasy world, that magical world where they didn't have those problems. They could just have the magic. So I think when you watch the shows, you see that joy, and I've always said this, watch that show on a big screen TV, look in their eyes, because eyes don't lie. You see the joy, you see the love. And, some of my favorite moments of I Love Lucy, because we've watched those shows so many times, sometimes we end up looking at things in the background and stuff, things we've never seen before. And I've noticed, watch Desi, he is just standing there sometimes looking at Lucy like he is so proud of her. And I also see how amazed he is by her talent. Like he's even marveling at it in the moment. And I said this before, that Desi did a very valuable thing for Lucy in that he gave her a sense of safety and security when they worked. I told the story, was last week before this, about how Lucille Ball's father, who died when she was 3.5 years old, he used to play a game where he would throw her up high up in the air and then catch her in his arms and then throw her up high and catch her. And Lucy said she was never scared because she knew her daddy would always catch her. And I thought metaphorically, when they did I Love Lucy and when she was taking all of those risks, big chances with her comedy and doing all those wild physical stunts, she had her Desi there, right beside her, a few feet away. It was almost like he was there to catch her if anything went wrong. And in fact, there's at least one episode where Lucy messed up her lines. And I told you, they did not like to do retakes on that show. They wanted to shoot it straight through, like it was live almost, as much as they could. And Desi actually, he was a quick thinker. He took her dialogue and switched it around in such a way to basically say, what you meant to say was this. I'm trying to think what it was. It was something like Lucy was saying, why don't we wallpaper the walls and paint the furniture, something like that. She reversed it, and he turned it back around very quickly and made it work. And Lucy goes, yeah, that's what I meant, but they just went on. Oh yeah, I know, because I was talking about when they did Vitamin to Vegemite. How Maury Thompson, who was the real life script clerk, was on that episode. If you watch the show, there's that little guy with the crew cut and the glasses and the director's chair with the script in his hand. You only see the back of his head. He was the real life script clerk. And Lucy said, something, because she was frightened by all that dialogue. Hello, friends, I'm your Vitamin Vegetable girl, blah, 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 blah. It's very complicated. And she had to get very, act the role of getting very inebriated and recall all that dialogue. And she said, let's get Maury made up and let's put him on the show. Let's have him be the script clerk for the commercial with the script. And that way, if I get tripped up, he can correct me on camera and we'll make it part of the show. And there was one part, and I'm sure you know this part, where, the director, has Lucy keep doing the scene over and over and over. Of course, the point of that is because she has to keep taking spoonfuls of 23% alcohol Vitamina Vegemin. And at one point you see Lucy blank and go, I don't know where to start unless I start again at the beginning. And the director says, all right, start again at the beginning. That was for real. That was Lucy going, I don't know where to start unless I start again at the beginning. But she flawlessly made it work and incorporated it into the episode. Her instincts were so good. So anyway, Pam was asking me, were there times when their marital troubles did show on the episodes? And let's see, first of all, let me say, Award, you said, yeah, I did with the Lucy Desi Comedy Hour, their Ricardo Visit Japan episode. Yeah, and where usually I would agree, but their union was in absolute tatters at that time. Well, actually, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, their marriage was in tatters. But I think any of us who have been in relationships, someone we love very much, we want to do everything we can. We want to believe. We want to believe there's hope. There's a chance we can get back together. We can work through our differences. And I think that's where they were coming from. But let's say, yes, it's true that usually Desi would have been ready to cover Lucy's on those rare times, but she may have flubbed. But yeah, that was a rather horrible time in their lives. Oh no, there's no question. I'm not trying to say it wasn't a horrible time. It was nightmarish. The few times Desi was still at home, there were times the police would be escorting him home because he was driving drunk or he was disorderly conduct or something. And it was Lucy's great friend, the gossip columnist Hedda Hopper, who protected Lucy, because Hedda Hopper was a powerful woman. She had connections with the FBI, the LAPD, the Beverly Hills Police, and people owed her favors. She knew how to pull the strings. So anyway, she suppressed the news media from covering things like Desi being arrested, drunk driving, things like that, being brought home. And there was one time, because Hedda Hopper, I think she even had a police scanner in her home, and she had all these sources who would call her. So she'd know things before they even happened. And Lucy said there was one time Hedda found out about Desi and actually came over to help Lucy carry Desi back into the house. Now, how's that for a friend? But also that just points out how really, really bad it was. So to get back to the point here, Pam was asking, did that ever seep into the show? And now others may have their own opinions here or have other episodes, but there's one episode that stands out for me. It's the episode where Lucy tried to smuggle the 25-pound cheese on the airplane on the way back from Europe. And she had it dressed up like a baby. The episode. A great episode, incredible dialogue. Because they were maybe the reason Lucy and Desi let some of their difficulties seep in was because the characters were having a fight. Ricky was outraged that Lucy was sneaking this cheese on the plane, and he refused to even sit with her. I want nothing to do with that cheese. And Lucy even had a line, well, looks just like his father, lines like that. But if you watch that episode, there's some underlying hostility that is a little too real, in my opinion. Watch it. It's subtle, but I've had other people comment on it too. I even had someone watching the episode with me going, ooh, looks like they had a really bad fight before the show. You can just see things in eyes. You can sense it. It went beyond just acting. It was a little too real, the tension between them. So look for that. And maybe some of you out there, like Ward, maybe you have your own opinion. Maybe an episode where you've caught some strife between them. But for the most part, they were consummate professionals, and in fact, I remember one of the hour-long episodes that was particularly poignant. It was the one where Lucy Ricardo got hired to do a morning television show. Basically, she got her wish to be in show business, and they used an element of Lucy and Desi's real life back in the 1940s when Lucy was at MGM Studios and Desi was on the road with his band. And they were almost never together. And they would tell stories of because Lucy had to be at MGM Studios. She had to leave at something like 4:30 in the morning to be there for hair and makeup. And Desi would be performing at a nightclub on the Sunset Strip, like the Trocadero or something. And so she'd be on the way to the studio. He'd be on the way back. They lived in Chatsworth, California, and they would meet at 4:30 in the morning on Mulholland Drive. Just, it was sometimes the only time of the day they were ever going to see each other. And so they incorporated that into the show, where Lucy was going off to work early in the morning for the TV show, and Desi was coming home late from the Tropicana nightclub, and they actually have this scene where they meet. And I always found it very poignant because I could tell they were drawing upon their own real life experiences, and you do see the love. You do see the love between them. It was beautiful. Were they still married and they made the Long Long Trailer? They were very much married, because that movie was made in 1953 and they divorced in 1960. So yes, they were married when they made that. Oh, how I love the Long Long Trailer. It's like a 2-hour Technicolor I Love Lucy episode. And of course they even played upon that. Like her name, instead of Lucy, it was Tacy, and I think his name was Nicky. So when you said the names really fast, it sounded like Lucy and Ricky, so they played upon it. I'm just looking at some other comments here. Oh yeah, when the jig was up, Ricky said it wasn't easy being married to her, but it was fun. Yeah, I think Desi would have said that also. Yeah, it wasn't easy, but what a life they built for each other. I mean, those two, when they met on the set of Too Many Girls in 1940, RKO Studios. Lucy was basically a B-movie actress. Desi was coming out to Hollywood to make his first film. He had played the supporting role in the movie on Broadway, in the stage musical. So he was coming out here. Neither of them were particularly hugely famous or anything. They met, fell in love, and there are all kinds of stories, like people who were on the movie, like Van Johnson and Miller, who were present when it happened. Actually, because it was their first meeting, was a rehearsal. It was a musical rehearsal for the film. And well, actually, the first meeting was Lucy was filming Dance Girl Dance with Maureen O'Hara, and it was the day of the big fight scene between Lucy and Maureen O'Hara, where they just get into this big brawl where they're on the floor rolling, they're fighting, they're punching each other, pulling their hair. So Lucy, she had, it was makeup, of course, but she had a big black eye and her hair was all messed up and her clothes were ripped. And it was near the commissary and everybody was going to lunch. And someone pointed out to Desi, "Oh, that's the leading lady of your movie." And Desi saw her and said, that's the leading lady, she looked horrible. But anyway, that afternoon they were going to have the first music rehearsal hall, and Lucy had cleaned herself up and fixed her hair and her makeup. And according to Desi, she was wearing a very sexy, tight yellow sweater. And Lucy said this in her autobiography. He said it in his autobiography. People who witnessed it saw it. He said out loud, "What a hunk of woman." And Ann Miller and Van Johnson, who were in the movie, they were there, and they just said, "Oh my God, the electricity jumping off of those two people." Everybody was aware of what was happening. But to think what happened, that humble beginnings, they go on and make the most successful television show in history. And that has been verified. 2012, there was ABC News Gallup poll conducted amongst viewers, television historians, writers. the greatest shows of all time, named it the number one show of all time. Last year, Variety magazine did a compilation of the 100 greatest shows of all time. Shows like Star Trek, The Waltons, Mad Men, Seinfeld, All in the Family. You can go on and on. Again, I Love Lucy, number one. And this show just turned last week 73 years old. So, I mean, the empire that Lucy and Desi created out of their love. It was out of their love, because the only reason they wanted to do that show was to save their marriage. They didn't know that show was going to be some big all-time American institution of television history. They didn't know this. They just wanted a reason that they could be together in the same city so they could work to save their marriage and start a family. And it just grew bigger than they ever could have fathomed. And along with that came a lot of pressure, a lot of tension, a lot of it just complicated their marriage instead of making it better. The first season they did 35 back-to-back episodes. Well, actually, the first season is comprised of 35 episodes. They actually shot something like closer to 39 or 40 episodes. It's just that when they found out at the end of that first season Lucy was pregnant, they wanted to bank some episodes where she wasn't showing it to use for the second season. So they actually shot that many episodes back to back. And then when they found out Lucy was pregnant, and then because they didn't want her, they wanted to do as many shows as they could before she started showing. So they only took 2 weeks off. Instead of the summer break they would normally have taken, they only took 2 weeks off and then went right back into the second season. And keep in mind, Lucy was pregnant while she was doing this. This was hard. This was stressful for the poor woman. She was just exhausted at this point. And so they filmed the episodes. She started showing. Then they start writing the pregnancy episodes, incorporate that into the show. Lucy took, it wasn't that much, maybe 4 months or so off maternity leave. And then she came back, a new mother. And this is after a cesarean section. Lucy was a slow healer. So with both of her babies, she had to have her stomach bandaged up for a very long time. It took a long time to recover from those 2 cesareans, but she went back to work. They completed the second season. They took 3 days off, and then they started making the long trailer. They finished that, had about a week off, and then went right back and started the third season of I Love Lucy. And at the beginning of the third season was when Lucy was accused of being a communist by Walter Winchell, almost had her career destroyed, Desi's career destroyed. Hundreds of people would have lost their jobs. Their lives were just endless stress. And I'm sure all of that contributed to the breakdown of the marriage. And I think it also contributed to the reason Desi's drinking started to escalate so heavily around that time also. It's a lot of tragedy, and a lot of tragedy behind something that has brought the world so much joy and so much love. And I should check my comments here. Yes, Lord, that was their can't make a baby on the phone era. Oh, yeah, I mean, when they fought over the bedroom window being open and shut. Yeah, that was another, for those of you who don't know, that was another real life story. Lucy, coming from upstate New York, she was used to it being cold. Desi was from tropical Cuba. He liked it hot. So they were fighting constantly over opening the bedroom window. Lucy wanted it open. Desi wanted it closed. And so they worked that into the show, and I think they did one thing where they said, okay, Ricky said, okay, we'll compromise. And he took a matchbook and had like a window open like about an inch. But anyway, invariably end up going off on tangents here because there's so many stories to tell. But I got the idea for this when Pam asked me those questions today. She called him a hothouse flower. I got to think of some other examples. Oh my God. Another example of real life. In fact, they used this in that horrible movie, Being the Ricardos. Don't even get me started on that. I know some of you like the movie. I hated that movie. And I could do a whole show on all the reasons why I despised the movie Being the Ricardos. But anyway, that's another show. But they incorporated that episode where Fred and Ethel get into a fight, and Lucy, the schemer, decides to have a little dinner party and invite the Mertzes, telling each one of them that she got a hot blind date for them. And of course, it was to bring them back together. And Lucy and Ricky are, everybody's getting along and everybody's made up. And then they're talking about, oh gosh, Ricky, haven't we had some fights? Oh yeah, Lucy, yeah. And anyway, they started bringing up one of their old fights, and it was like, yes, dear. No, dear, that's not the way it happened. And anyway, they started fighting, and anyway, they ended up breaking up for a while. And that happened in real life. That was based on a real incident where Lucy and Desi started getting into recounting a little fight they'd once had at the dinner table. It was at a dinner party, and they started getting into a big, all-out brawling fight with each other. But at least they had a sense of humor about themselves, and they knew it was good material for the show. And one of the things that makes I Love Lucy work so well, it is honest. I mean, I know the plots, yeah, they could get very cartoonish, over the top, but it was always hooked in reality. It was hooked in truth. I talked about this before, about how Lucy, she said, I approached everything like a child believer, like a little girl in a fantasy world, just believing it with all your heart. And because Lucy believed what she was doing, she made you, the viewer, believe it too. And things that seemed implausible, she made seem perfectly natural, real. Like, doesn't everybody get drunk doing a TV commercial? Doesn't everybody hang from a rope outside of a hotel window so they can get into Richard Widmark's room? Doesn't everybody work on a candy factory conveyor belt and have it speed up? Stuffing chocolates. Because, that's an example of an episode in any lesser hands would have fallen apart and would have come across as so contrived and so silly. Nah, you can watch that show 300 times and you'll still laugh. I was thinking the other day, the episode where she and Ethel wallpapered the bedroom quite disastrously, all the striped paper going all over the place. And there's that scene where they can't find Ethel. Ethel, where are you, Ethel? And she opens the door and rips her the wallpaper. Now, that, admittedly, that's a very silly moment. But I laugh hysterically every time I see that. And it's like a very honest laugh. There's just something so pure about those moments. So that's the beauty of the show. And I've been on here almost an hour and 15 minutes now, so I should probably sign out soon, unless any of you out there have a question or something you'd like me to talk about real quick before I go or bring up. I hope I've seen all the comments here. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, yeah, Ward, you were saying about Hedda Hopper. You're surprised that she did that, but that was good. That was unexpected. Well, I could do a show about that one too sometime, because Lucy and Hedda Hopper had a surprisingly close friendship. And if you know anything about Hedda Hopper, she and Luella Parsons were considered the two most feared women in Hollywood, and for good reason. They were both rival gossip columnists, and they were people who could either make or destroy a career. They had that kind of power and that kind of influence. So everybody basically kissed their asses, were scared to death of them. And there was one time, I think, it was Hedda Hopper was interviewing Lucy, and Lucy was nervous. And Hedda put down her pen and paper. I was back in the days, and you actually, the old reporters where they would actually write in their notebook. And she put her pen and paper down and said, "Lucy, you're afraid of me, aren't you? Why don't you admit it? You're afraid of me." And Lucy said, "Well, yeah, I am." And Hattis said, "Lucy, you know something? I like you. You and I are a lot alike. We're a couple of tough ladies, and we've been through a lot, and we could actually be very good for each other as friends. We could be good allies, and I'd like to be your friend." And that's where it started. They both just opened up each other, and they became very close confidants, which, here's a woman who was a gossip columnist who could have taken all these secrets and spilled them. No, she kept Lucy's secrets because Lucy was her friend, and Hedda was very, very protective of Lucy. And like I said, she kept bad stories out of the press, like about Desi being arrested for drunk driving, disorderly conduct, things like that. She did that because she loved her friend so much. She was quite an ally. And of course, Hedda Hopper did do an episode of I Love Lucy. And she also did the first hour-long episode where she played herself on both episodes. And I guess I should add this. It technically was not an hour-long episode. It was an hour and 15-minute long episode. I think the only time in television history that has ever happened. And the story was that, it was their first effort for their new hour-long Lucy Desi comedy hour. And that was just redundant what I just said. Their hour-long for Lucy Desi hour, of course, duh. But they were watching it after it had all been edited. And they thought it was a really marvelous show, except for the problem, it ran 15 minutes longer than it should have. And they tried cutting it, and it just wasn't right. And Desi went to CBS, and their response was, "Well, why did you just make it an hour and a half show? Well, this will be your first episode. We'll do an hour and a half special. Go ahead, add 15 more minutes." And so they went back in the editing room, and they found when they added to it, it also didn't work. It just kind of padded it out and slowed it down. It didn't work. And Desi said, "No, it works as an hour and 15 minutes. And so the show that came on after them was a show sponsored, I think it was by Alcoa Aluminum or something. And Desi went to them directly and said, "Would you give us 15 minutes of your time? Would you be willing to do a 45-minute show that week?" And then they balked at that. And Desi said, "Well, you do realize that we are the #1 show on television, and we are going to give you an incredible lead-in, and you're probably going to get the best ratings you've ever had." And Desi said, "If you agree to do this, I will even come on in a film spot at the end of the show, urging all the viewers to watch your show. And I will even say it's Lucy and me. It's our favorite show, and we never miss it." And sure enough, they got the best ratings they ever had in exchange for that. So that's the story behind the hour and 15-minute Lucy Desi comedy hour. And Hedda Hopper was on that episode. And "Oh, are you having trouble with your Wi-Fi? I'm so sorry." At the beginning of the show, I was explaining I had trouble. I didn't get on here until 5:02 because my Wi-Fi or something was not connecting. If you've ever done a YouTube live, you type all your information and everything, and then you hit that little button live, and all I got was this little circle spinning and spinning and spinning. So I had to exit and type all my stuff in and start over again, hence 2 minutes late. And I don't know how many viewers I lost because of that, but we do what we have to do. But yeah, sometimes Wi-Fi does let us down. Oh, and another thing about that episode, Ann Southern was on there, and that Kathy was telling me that when she was a little girl, she worked with Ann Southern on her TV show. And she said Ann Southern was very, very sweet to her, and also did an episode of Family Affair, which I didn't recall. She told me that. What did you get the spaceman on the moon? I don't know what you mean. Well, what's the spaceman on the moon? Maybe you can explain that to me. I'm sorry. I don't understand. But oh, is that some little symbol they give? If you're not connected, you get a spaceman on the moon or something. I don't know. I just got this circle. It kept spinning around. Yeah, I don't know. I just had a spinning circle. Was, I've had that happen a few times before, and I used to get really frustrated. I have to be on at 5. I promised people. Now I just do the show and have fun and just try not to I don't want to say I don't take it seriously, because of course I take it seriously, but I just have a lighthearted approach to it of whatever happens. Yeah, that is interesting. They did work together. I wasn't aware of that. I almost felt bad because I told her a story. I don't think Kathy was offended, but Barbara Eden, you don't recall her on Family Affair? You don't remember Sissy? She was remember Buffy, Jody, and Sissy? Sissy was the teenager. That's who she was. It was Uncle Bill, Mr. French, Buffy, Jody, and Sissy, and Kathy was Sissy. But Barbara Eden, I met her a couple of years ago, and she was talking about Ann Sothern. Well, she didn't actually say Ann Sothern. I figured out who it was because Barbara Eden was telling the story. She said it was her second ever job, and it was on this actress's television sitcom. And she said the actress was just really mean to her. I'm very jealous of her because at this point, Ann Sothern she had put on a lot of weight, and she was in her 40s at this point. And that's hard for actresses who have been very beautiful and glamorous to get older in this business. And apparently it was difficult for her. In fact, that's the reason, if you've ever watched that show, Private Secretary, that was her show in the 50s, she's always dressed in black. That belief that black makes you look slimmer. And they always filmed her standing behind desks, behind filing cabinets. They never showed her below the waist, her hips. That was to disguise her weight. But anyway, Barbara Eden said, Barbara was classy. She didn't say Ann Sothern. She just said the actress was really mean. But it's not hard to get your iPhone up and just, look her up and look up her credits and see that her second job was private secretary with Ann Sothern. But she was telling the story because her third job was I Love Lucy. And she was so scared because she had such a bad experience with Ann Sothern. And she was scared Lucy was going to be like that. And it was the total opposite. She said Lucy was one of the kindest people she ever worked with in her entire career. And Lucy was so gracious and so generous to her. In fact, I've even told the story about, because the whole plot of that episode, she was this beautiful, voluptuous thing. And it was the country club, and all the women, Betty Ramsey and Ethel Mertz and Lucy Ricardo, their husbands were like practically, their tongues were hanging out. They were drooling over her, and they were obsessed. And that's where the comedy came. And so Lucy, during rehearsals, it was apparently a dress rehearsal. She was wearing the dress she was going to wear. And Lucy said, "Do you like that dress?" And Barbara Eden thought, uh-oh, here it comes. And Lucy said, "Take that dress off right now. Take it off." Anyway, Lucy said, "Let me make it more pretty for you. Let me sew some rhinestones and sequins on it. We'll make it prettier for you." And Barbara Eden said in Lucy's dressing room, whenever there'd be a break, lunch break, she'd be in there. I think she had one of those guns where you put them on that way, but she was hand putting beads on the dress to make the dress prettier for Barbara Eden. And Lucy was smart because she also knew that the prettier Barbara Eden looked, the more the comedy was going to work, because that was the whole basis of it. But that was also how secure Lucy was in herself, but also how kind and gracious she was and generous. So anyway, that's the story there. And let me see here. Oh, yes. I think in recent years, Miss Eden has confessed about it. But when I saw her 2 years ago, she did not name Ann Southern. She was trying to be gracious. But like I said, it's too easy to look up credits now. You can figure it out yourself. Oh, well, award. I just looked here. You just told the same thing I just told, where she went so far as to sew the jewels on her gown. Well, actually, as I was saying, it wasn't. She was taking a gun, one of those guns that shoots them on. That's according to Barbara Eden, but still, that was a lot of work. And Lucy put care to make that dress as beautiful as she could make it. It was just a really sweet thing to do. But Kathy Garver spoke very warmly of Ann Southern and clearly loved her. So I felt a little bad when I told that story. But I hope she forgave me for it. I mean, we seem to be on good terms, and it was a lovely day. Yeah. Oh, yes. I think Barbara Eden. Yeah, more you were saying she made it clear she was not interested in Mr. Arnaz beyond professional. Yeah, I'm sure Lucy appreciated that too. But I think Barbara Eden may have been married at that point. I think she was, because she also told of how she worked with Elvis, and she confessed there was a little bit of a crush between them, but Barbara Eden was quick to say, but I was married. And it was simple as that. I was very much in love with my husband, and as fabulous as Elvis was, there was no affair between us. I just want to assure you of that. Yeah, Lucy went beyond the call of duty. So anyway, I've been on here almost an hour and a half now. I guess I better sign off. How do I talk for an hour and a half? When I first started doing this show, it was 30 minutes. And I even worried about that. In the beginning, I thought, am I going to have enough stuff to talk about for half an hour? Well, it seems as of late, this has been going on 90 minutes. But then, I've been relying mostly on reruns for my videos on my channel. I haven't shot any new things for a while, and I need to, and I will, I promise. But the bulk of my contribution to my channel right now is this live broadcast on Mondays, and I've been very consistent with it. And so I guess it's okay to put some more time into it. And as long as you guys enjoy it, I enjoy doing it. And anyway, so I'm going to sign out now, but I just want to thank you all so dearly. What was that word about Vice President Harris? Well, I told that at the beginning of the show. That was when you missed it, but I'll just say it again. I have that portrait I did of Kamala Harris, and I wanted to donate it for fundraising. Like here in LA, there are a lot of celebrity events, silent auctions. I thought there was a chance it might raise some good money, and I pursued this. I made phone calls everywhere: Sacramento, Pasadena, LA. I had people make recommendations to me who were working for the Democratic Party. I sent multiple emails, phone calls, messages. Nobody would get back to me. I finally got one person who got back to me today, only to tell me it's probably too late now. Because there was one event she knew of, but she said it's too late to get any art in there now. And I thought, but I started on this a month ago. I never dreamt it was going to be so difficult. And I don't want to get too upset, because a lot of it is because these people are just working as hard as they can right now, and they're inundated. Several have said that to me. One person who did write back eventually, in fact, it was the person who connected me with this person, has just said, please, it's so hard to answer all the emails right now. We are being slammed. We are working very, very long days, well into the night, as we gear closer and closer to the election. So anyway, Ward, that's the news about that. But I was also telling the story about how I shot a video documenting all the stages of making the artwork. It's close to an hour long once I stitched all the scenes together. And my very dear friend Pam of Pomona Remembers, who is extremely gifted with videos, she wants to do her part. She's Canadian, but she wants to do her part to help Kamala also. She believes in her so much that she said, document this, send it all to me, and then let me add my touches to it. Let me put my magic on it. So she's working on that right now as we speak. I've been in communication with her today. Part of it is going to have my narration where I'm just talking about the artistic process of creation. And then we're going to incorporate some segments from Kamala's speeches and weave all that in. You know, anybody who's ever done this sort of thing, like editing sound and stuff, it's not easy and it's very time consuming. So I'm very grateful to Pam. I'm sure that's why she's not on here now watching, because she's probably working to get that video done. So, that'll come of it. And, Ward, thank you. I meant what, yeah, you're right. I meant very well. And I did do some other volunteer work, like I wrote over 100 handwritten postcards. I mentioned this before, the two things they often will have you do if you want to do volunteer work: phone calls and handwritten postcards, where they give you a script and they give you a packet of the cards with a list of addresses, usually like undecided voters or people who haven't registered yet or what have you. It's different scenarios, different states. I sent a whole bunch to Florida. It just took me a long time. I wrote 50 cards for people in Nevada, particularly around the Las Vegas area. As they explained to me at the headquarters, that the Senate race is very, very tight there. And I said, well, fine. That's all I need to know. Let me write postcards. So I did do that much, but I thought my artwork was going to be that cherry on the top. That was going to be my really special contribution, but it just didn't happen. But Pam was the one to remind me. She said, well, maybe this is what it was meant to be. Maybe it's this video we're putting together. Maybe this is your contribution. And who knows what's going to happen with my original artwork. I still have it. I held it up once before. Here, let me hold it up one more time. Hand painted. And like I was saying earlier at the start of the video, there's so much AI right now. Photoshop, stuff like that, computer generated images. I wanted to do a video showing, no, this came from me. This came from a human being. This was hand drawn. This was hand painted. Ain't no AI here. So if nothing else, I will certainly make that point with the video. And I know I need to do more videos like that with my art. And I just remembered something Pam had advised me to do. I didn't do. She said I should always have a piece of my artwork behind me when I speak to promote my art. And I just realized, duh, I forgot to do that. But at least I held up my Kamala Harris. So anyway, it's an hour and 35 minutes now. I better sign out. I just thank you all. I love you for coming here. It means a lot to me to have this ongoing support. You voted early. I have my ballot. I want to get that in also. It's just here in California, we have a few measures that I still want to study on before I vote on, because these political commercials, you can't trust the damn things. They're either side. They're so biased. I'm right. You're wrong. Blah, 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 blah. I find you just have to get out and do your own homework. And in good consciousness, I just don't want to vote for things that I don't understand fully. So that's the one thing that's keeping me from getting my ballot out early. But I think to be on the safe side, I know in 2020, there was a lot of worry about election interference. We saw like really strange things going on with the Postal Service and so forth. And even people like Michelle Obama, Barack Obama, others were doing promo bits saying, vote early, get your vote in as early as you can. So, to try to stay above the fray of all of this. So yeah, I'm going to vote soon, and I'm going to vote with pride. I'm going to, I'll mail my ballot in, but there is that part of me that's likes the idea of actually walking into the voting booth and physically casting that vote, punching that little thing on the punch card or whatever system you have in your own state. It's a good feeling. I'm very proud of it. And yeah, we're all very lucky and we're very privileged to have the right to vote. So anyway, I'm going to say goodbye. You can check me out here every Monday at the same time, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Chuck's Captivating Chat on my channel, Chuck's Captivating Chronicles, where I talk about old Hollywood and Lucy. And as of late, some politics have been seeping in, even though I promised myself I would never do that. But it's just too much a part of my life right now. And also, tomorrow, on the Oracle of Whimsy channel, I do Dr. Whimsy Anderson's show, Taco Tuesdays. Taco Tuesdays, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And on that show, we talk about a lot of more serious things, news events. We get very much into politics. Whimsy keeps me on my toes, and I wouldn't have it any other way. She's been my great mentor in so many ways. So anyway, Ward, I hope your Wi-Fi gets better, and thank you everyone else who's joined me for this, or people who will join me for the recording later. I appreciate you very much, and I'll see you here next week. So I'll say goodnight for now.